Concept number 4, solving inequalities. Number 1 says c plus 6 minus 2 times the quantity c minus 8 is greater than 0. We want to try to get that c by itself. There's a couple of them here. It's being tied up with that negative 2. Let's go ahead and distribute that negative 2. So I'll keep a c plus 6. I've got negative 2 times c is negative 2c. I've got negative 2 times negative 8 is positive 16. That is still greater than 0. All right, we'll just get that again. C plus 6, negative 2c plus 16 is greater than 0. C plus a negative 2c is negative c. 16 plus a 6 is 22. So I've got negative c plus 22 is greater than 0. I've got negative c, if I subtract 22 from both sides, is greater than negative 22. If I divide by the negative 1, I get c is less than. This is a key step right here. I'm dividing by a negative 1. When you multiply or divide both sides of one of these by a negative number, this sign has to flip over. If it doesn't flip over, we're not going to have a true statement in the end. Negative 22 divided by negative 1 is positive 22. So our answer for number 1 should be c is less than 22. And I see a question in the back. Number 2, what I would do to start this one is divide both sides by 7 instead of distributing, because 7 goes into 35 nicely. So I can go ahead and make that happen without a lot of effort. The 7's reduced here. It gives me k minus 4 is greater than 35 divided by 7 is 5. And now I just want to add that 4 to both sides. So if I add the 4 to both sides, my next step is going to say k is greater than 9. And I'm done right there. So number 1 was c is less than 22, and number 2 was k is greater than 9. This is concept 5. Number 3, solve the equation. If there's no solution, write no solution. This is our absolute value, and what most of you guys forgot on these absolute values is there's 2 answers, usually. 2 answers on these. So let's go ahead and do number 3. I'm going to add 9 to both sides to start off with. So that gives me 8. Absolute value of n equals 23 plus 9 is what? 32. And if I divide by 8, I get absolute value of n is equal to 4. But remember, the answer that n can be is anything I can put in there and 4 comes out. Well, I can put in a positive 4, or I can put in a negative 4 and get 4 to come out. The absolute value of 4 is 4. The absolute value of negative 4 is also 4. So this thing has 2 answers. And when you see absolute values, start thinking, hey, I got to find 2 answers. And in this number 3 case, it's as simple as a positive and negative 4. That's all you got to do. All right, let's take a look at number 4. On number 4, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3 because I don't want to distribute it if I don't have to. And 3 goes into 18 real nice. 3 divided by 3 just reduces out. I have x plus a half inside of an absolute value is equal to 18 divided by 3, which is 6. Now, the absolute value here is going to give me 2 cases again, but it's not as simple as what we did in number 3. But notice in number 3, we had absolute value equals the positive or negative of the right side. That same thing has happened here in number 4. The absolute value thing, x plus 1/2, equals the positive, or the x plus 1/2, the thing inside the absolute value, equals the negative of the right side. That gives me 2 little equations that I can solve. If I subtract a half from both sides, I get x is equal to 6 minus a half is 5.5. Or if I add a half to both sides, actually I subtract a half from both sides here also, x equals negative 6 minus a half is negative 6.5. So there's my 2 answers. I either get 5.5 or negative 6.5. And we're done. Question there. The equation that we're asked to graph is in slope-intercept form. They're giving us a slope of negative 2. They're giving us a y-intercept of 1. The easiest way to graph this is to use that information. If they're giving us a slope of negative 2 and a y-intercept of 1, we want to start at the y-intercept of 1. So here's 1. That's the point 0, 1. That's coming from the y-intercept of 1. Now use the slope of negative 2 to find another point. Remember, slope is rise over run. And since this is equal to negative 2, I've got a rise of negative 2 and a run of 1. Negative 2 divided by 1 is the same as the negative 2. So if I rise negative 2, I'm actually going down 2. So I'll go down 2 from here, 1, 2, and I'm going to run 1. It'll put me right here. Let's find another point from there. I'm going to go down to 1, 2, and run 1. It'll put me right here. Let's go ahead and draw our line. Our line goes through these points. And that's it. There's a quick check you can do. If a slope is negative, if the slope is negative, then the line has to fall from left to right. If the slope is positive, then the line has to rise from left to right. So if it's negative, the line's kind of going down as we read from left to right. If it's positive, the line's going up as we read from left to right. So that's a quick check. If you draw some line here that's going up from left to right, you know it's wrong because it's supposed to be a negative slope. So that's a quick check you can do. And again, the easiest way to do these is just use the fact that they gave you a y-intercept at 1, plot the 1, and a slope of negative 2. So go down 2 and over 1, find your next point, and you basically can draw your line. If you want to, find a second or a third or fourth point there, and you can double check. Any questions on that guy? Here. Concept 7, writing a function rule. We need to write a rule for the table. So we have to look at this table and try to figure out what's going on. Well, there's a big hint right here. When x is 0, y is 0, which means they're not adding or subtracting anything. It's really nice when they give you 0 because that tells you what they're adding or subtracting. And when that comes out to 0, they're not adding or subtracting anything. So this is a pure multiplication problem. So f of x is going to equal some number times x. We just have to figure out what the number is. Well, if we look at these, 1, when x is 1, we get negative 4. When x is negative 1, we get positive 4. When x is negative 2, we get 8. How do you get from 2 to 8? By multiplication? Multiply by 4. How do we get from negative 2 to positive 8 or negative 1 to positive 4? Yeah, so I want my function to be f of x equals negative 4x. If I take a positive 1 times a negative 4, I'm going to get this negative 4. That one works. If I take a 0 times a negative 4, I'm going to get 0. That one works. And we've already seen that these two work. So that works for every point that's in the table, and we're done. So number 6 is just figure out what you have to multiply x by to get y. Remember, this f of x is basically the same as y. Okay? Let's pause right here for a second. Number 7, we're doing the same directions, but this time they gave us the 0. We like seeing 0 in the x because it tells us what they're adding or subtracting. We know they're subtracting 1 here because when x is 0, we get a negative 1. Let's see if that's all they're doing. If I have 1 minus 1, do I get 0? Yeah. If I have 2 minus 1, do I get 1? Yeah. If I have 3 minus 1, do I get 2? Yeah. So all we're doing here is subtracting 1. We're done. F of x is equal to the x value minus 1. And we can see that our big hint is right here in this point. When we plug 0 in, negative 1 comes out. That means we have to subtract 1 to make that happen. And that happens to work for every point all the way down. So we're done. F of x equals x minus 1. Questions there? I have 2.22 feet per minute. Write a rule to describe this function. Well, a lot of you guys figured this out. You couldn't do 6 and 7, but you figured this out, which is really kind of cool because I think this is a harder problem. And so you guys did a really good job of figuring out the harder problem, which was really neat. So write a rule to describe the function. Well, my rule is going to be f of x equals something. And this snail is going at 2.2 feet per minute. What variable do you want to use for the number of minutes? M. So let's use that. So let's say it's just going 2.22 m, where m is the number of minutes. Done. That's A. How far will the snail travel in 7 minutes? What do I have to do? Yeah, 2.22 times 7. Well, you guys got this on your own. That's going to be 15.54. And I don't want to stop here. 15.54 what? Feet. I want to go ahead and put that in. So I've got part A right here. There's my function. And part B, there's my rule. Some of you guys, or there's my answer for 7 minutes. Some of you guys were able to do B, but you didn't write down an answer for A. If you can do B, you know the answer for A. You just need to write it down. Just take 2.22 times the number of minutes and show that in some kind of a rule. A lot of you guys used an X instead of an M. That's fine. I don't care what variable you use. It helps if you define it a little bit. M equals number of minutes. There. If variable's defined, everybody knows what M is. We're good to go. So it was really neat to see you guys do well on number 8, which I think is the harder problem of the whole set. Any questions here? This section deals with variation. There's 2 types of variation. One's direct. These 2 problems deal with direct. And the other's inverse. And these two problems deal with inverse. This one doesn't say inverse anywhere in the directions, but most of you guys figured out that is what we were after. And tomorrow when you're doing this exam, if you're not sure, ask me, and I'll tell you whether it's inverse or direct. But this was also inverse. We had two directs and two inverse. We have to know the difference between them. We know that one of these things looks like xy equals k, and the other one looks like k equals y over x. One of these is direct, and one of these is inverse. The other way to write this is y equals kx. It's the same one. The other way to write this is y equals k divided by x. The key for me to remembering which is what's happening with the x and the y. Here the x and the y multiply. Here the x and the y divide. The word divide starts with a D. The word direct starts with a D. So this one's direct. So all of this right here is direct. Inverse doesn't start with a D, and multiplication doesn't start with a D. This is inverse. Okay? That's the easiest way to keep them separated. Just use that little alphabetical thing. Direct, divide, x and y. Inverse, multiply, x and y. So in a direct variation, the equation would look like this. But notice this question doesn't say, find the constant of variation. The constant of variation is just the k value. And in fact, in the directions, they tell us right there it's the k value. So it's kind of nice. They told us that. This is direct variation, so I'm using this formula over here. The constant always equals the y divided by the x. So let's see if I can get y divided by x. Well, if I divide both sides by x here, don't I get 3 equals y over x? So, 3 over x, y over x. So my constant is this thing that y over x equals. My constant is 3. That's it. That's number 9. The constant variation. If I look right here, notice that y equals kx. This is y equals 3x. The constant has to be 3. It's done. Number 10, find the constant for the direct variation. Well, again, if I can write this equation so it says a number equals y over x, I'm done. First thing I want to do is add this 6y to both sides, so 7x equals 6y. And now divide by x. X, let's see, I don't want to do that. I want to say 7. Let's see, divide by x. X is reduced out. 7 equals 6y over x. I want to get rid of the 6. How can I get rid of the 6? Just want to divide by it. 6 divided by 6 is what? 1, right? Divide that by 6. So I just got y over x is equal to 7 over 6. That's also my k value. Y over x equals k. So it's 7, 6. 7, 6. Number 11, suppose that y varies inversely with x. Write an equation for the inverse variation. So I need something that looks like this. X, y equals k. Well, x is 4 and y is 3. So what is x times y?
12.
12. We're done. Find the missing value. These are inverse variations. So x times y always equals the k. What's x times y for 6 and 8? 48. What does x have to be so 4 times x equals 48? X is 12. That's the missing value. We're done. So again, this section right here is potentially the easiest section in the whole exam. It's just hard because you got to understand the difference between inverse and direct. Any questions here?